There's a group of lawyers who want to take Hamas off UK's terror list, the list of proscribed terror organisations, and Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick has called for a thorough and transparent investigation of Riverway Law by the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the SRA. And this comes to the firm made a legal application to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, challenging the proscription of Hamas in the UK as a terror organisation. And I saw a fantastic interview on Talk between Peter Cardwell and one of these barristers. I think his name was Magennis from Riverway Law. Magennis is part of Garden Court Chambers, and Peter Cardwell tore strips off him.
Have you decided to take this case?
What do you mean?
Has it been your decision to take this case? You've been instructed and you've decided to take the case?
Who else would have decided to take the case? I don't understand. So of course I decide what cases I take.
How do you sleep at night?
You have just asked me, how do I sleep at night? And what you're trying to do by saying that is you're trying to fix me, you're trying to associate me with my client. There is a very well-established
representing them, Frank. You're representing them. You've decided to this is a conversation. I'm not going to be told whether I can talk or not talk. You've decided to represent them.
So you've invited me to talk over me because you're afraid of what I have to say, is that right?
I'm not afraid of what you have to say.
Let's talk about how there's a crisis of Zionism because it's committing a genocide. Do you agree that Israel's committing a genocide?
No.
So if I'm right that it is, and if South Africa's government is right that it is, that would make you a genocide denier, would it? Is that what you are? You deny genocide, do you?
To you alleging that I'm a genocide denier, which I would argue is defamatory.
You literally denied the genocide. It's not defamatory, mate.
I'm not denying it. I'm not denying it. It is not a genocide.
Yeah, so if I said if I'm right,
it is factually not. Well, you're tying yourself up in knots. What I would wonder is how you can argue that Hamas isn't a terrorist organisation if the definition is so broad.
Well, by that logic, Israel's a terrorist organisation. Do you agree?
No.
Well, think about it. Come on, man, think it through.
There is no solution for the Palestinian question except through jihad. That is what Hamas believe, and I would not represent an organisation that believed that, and you have chosen to.
Where's that quote from?
The first one is from the Hamas Charter Article 7, and the second one is from Hamas Charter Article 13.
Which year was that charter passed in?
I don't have it in front of me.
You don't know, do you?
I thought long and hard about this because it's a fundamental of our democratic system that everybody has the right to legal representation, and indeed in the not too distant past, and we constantly see our Prime Minister Keir Starmer being criticised because in his former life as a lawyer he defended some what some would agree is some fairly unsavoury characters. However, I think this is different. This is not about members of Hamas or any other organisation being entitled to legal representation. Hamas are clearly one of the most heinous, despicable terrorist organizations on the face of the earth. One need only remind what they did when slaughtering, I think, 1,400 Jewish people on October the 7th, 2023, and to now be campaigning to have their terrorist status removed. This just stinks. And could I say one more thing? I watched that same interview. If they're relying on a brief, the quality of this Magennis Charlie, they won't get very far. I mean, as somebody who, as you know, Philip, I've spent the last over 10 years working with people to do difficult media interviews and work on public speaking skills. I mean, he fell straight into Peter's trap. Peter said very simply to him, "How do you sleep at night?" The obvious answer, the only answer to that is, "I sleep very well, Peter, and let me tell you why," and you take control of the conversation. And I've been interviewed by Peter. He's a tough guy, but he's a very fair guy.
Yeah,
he's a very fair interviewer. I've been interviewed by Peter many times. And, but instead of that, he got into a slagging match with Peter, and he started telling Peter he was out of his depth and patronizing him. And he just lost. He lost everything. He lost it completely. Yeah. And, if that's what you're going to have if that's what you're going to have representing you in court as a silk, I'd rather not go to court, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I can't understand how he
Yeah.
got to be a barrister. I'm assuming that he's a British barrister, so he's a King's Counsel. That'll not go down well with his obvious political affiliations, because he started to try and call the UK a terrorist state for what happened in Northern Ireland, and of course he tried to call Israel a terrorist state under the
and of course using the word genocide, which and I know I've learned rather a lot about genocide in the last three and a half years. Since studying very, very closely what Russia does in Ukraine and looking very closely at the UN's definition of genocide.
Yeah.
And regardless of what is going on in Gaza at the moment, it has not yet been adjudicated authoritatively as a genocide. And for this guy to argue that it is a genocide, it's just, this guy's out of his depth. He's
if Israel wanted,
he's an idiot.
If Israel wanted to commit genocide in Gaza, there would not be the small number of casualties, and it's a significant number, but there wouldn't be the small number of casualties that there are at the minute. It would be up in the millions, because they have the wherewithal to do that. They'd have if they wanted to commit genocide, they'd have just lined up the bulldozers and bulldozed Gaza straight into the sea and not cared about anyone that was there. That's genocide. What's going on actually isn't. It's dealing with a terror organization that uses civilians as human shields. And you just had to look at, there were protests in recent weeks in northern Gaza against Hamas. And one of the individuals that helped organize those protests, I saw a brutal video where Hamas captured him, put him in front of a wall, shot him in the legs, and then killed him. With children standing around watching. If that's not a terror organization, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's just something. There's something just does not. As I say, I did think about this very, very carefully, and one needs to maybe one's own prejudices aside and say, is this part of our system? But no, this is different to representing somebody who may be unsavory. That's the fundamental point for me.
Yeah, that's where Peter turned around and said, asked Magennis, did he choose to take this case? Because there's no requirement for it. It's not a criminal case where a barrister is assigned from the cab rank of barristers to defend people who are entitled to defence under the law. This wasn't. This was chosen by him and his court, his chambers to take it on. He could have said
Philip,
no.
Yeah, but Philip, look, he didn't have to answer, because he very clearly betrayed his own prejudices by the way he went on to engage with Peter with that. So we know that the answer is that he did choose it.
Yeah, no,
and it's something that his heart. It's something that his heart clearly is in.